This is a Tweed, yes. So we're going to get started. Right. 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 So, yeah. So we're going to start with the chocolate Tweeds. So the chocolate Tweeds are the original ones. They come from the chocolate itself that has got an excess grizzling gene. It affects the coat in two different ways. So to start with, you get an intermingling of silvered hairs. They're not white, but they're silvered. All of the guard hairs will be that silvered colour, and right to the root. So the guard hairs will go silvered all the way through. We have got to get a name for this. For it to go to guide standard, we have got to come up with a name for that colour.
Is it the same colour as the dark, but with
A silver gene?
Hardly any
yes.
pigment in it.
So it's not. So these aren't. Yeah, it's a silvering gene that affects the chocolate, and it only affects chocolate. When I show you the agouti ones in a bit, you'll kind of see what the chocolate bit that's gone.
So when you grow them, are you growing them with silver bits out?
Yes, because what will happen with the hair growth, when you're better off keeping up with the grooming with these, because if you take a guard hair out, a new one will start straight away. So you will get guard hairs that are 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters, and 4 millimeters, and you're only taking away the 5, 6, 7, and 8 millimeter ones. So you will still get an intermingling of silvered guard hairs. And if you kept up with the grooming regularly, you would get a much more even distribution of these silvered hairs. Now, the other aspect of it is that you get a silvered undercolour. So basically, it strips all of the undercolour out. So you can see on this one's it's not even, but it's fairly even. You've got slightly darker patches and some slightly lighter, and you can see a spinal bar coming down. But if you look underneath, all of the undercolour is the same colour. So it's the silvered guard hairs and the silvered undercolour that are next to each other. We want that to be as even as possible. Now, if you get one aspect of the gene that's not as good as the other, say for example you get the silvered guard hairs but it's not quite a silvered undercolour, you will see a mixture of the tones. So basically you're trying to get a balance of those two silvering aspects into the same pig. Now, the chocolate ones are a lot patchier than the agouti ones, and they change so much as they're growing. When you could get a baby that looks like that when it's born and ends up like that as an adult, it can be quite frustrating. You don't actually know how they're going to end up.
But when they're an adult, do they stay like that? Or like a Himalayan, do they change?
So I don't think they change with. We don't 100% know, but it's more so. So we've just been asked, as an adult on the chocolate ones, Amy's got more of the chocolate ones than I have. So as they're an adult, once because they change as they're
They
growing.
change loads. Yeah.
And
they
I'm
really
saying
do.
you could get one that's quite even as a baby, and you think, oh, I'm going to show that one,
Yeah.
and then it could end
Turns
up
out like that. Yeah.
Once they're adults, do they change much?
Yes. I've had them change again.
So,
Yeah.
would you say that's with the seasons, or would you just say that is a constant changing
I
of?
think they just constantly change. I really do.
So I want to be the end.
He's a young 5 to 8. That is my one, isn't it?
Yeah, this is mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
young 5 to 8. Mine's a 5 to 8.
Yeah.
How old's this one?
Couldn't even tell you.
So what's
Probably bordering going into
when you were
5
talking about the balance of the undercolour and the silver end? What's the perfect shade? Is it light? Is it dark? Does it matter?
We want light.
We want the lighter.
Yeah, we want lighter, rather than.
More like the soft.
Because I have lots born that are just more like that.
So would you say that's too dark?
Yeah, we both feel that's too dark.
Yeah.
And you can see, if it was even, that's balance. So with any pig, it's all about balance. And if you had one that was dark, but had you can see with this one, you can see the intermingling of colours at the base. We want to get that as even as possible. Whereas you pick up the dark patches, and you can really see the difference between those two colours there. Whereas you pick up this, that's light. You can see more intermingling there. We want it to be lighter. Basically, we want the silvering to give a tipped appearance. So the ends of the overall ends of the coat on a chocolate tweed would be silvered undercolour completely, with tipped and non-tipped hairs going through evenly.
Right.
That's an ideal world.
Given an overall light effect.
Yes.
Do you always get
The mask. So on so you do get a mask. They're the opposite of chinchillas.
Yeah.
So wherever you've got light on a chinchilla, you've got dark on a tweed. They're like a sepia version. What's it when you do the opposite? Negative.
Yeah.
Literally, they are a negative of a chinchilla in that sense, because you've got the darker eye circles. You've got all the markings, but in opposite ways.
Everywhere where the coat is very short, it's dark.
Because the tips of the hair are chocolate. So as the tips get shorter and more condensed, that's when you get the mask. And you can see with this one, you can see that the tweeding hairs are starting to come around the edges. So you're never going to get the strength that you would in a Californian. So
It's not smart.
no, it's not a smut.
I'm in the firing line there.
Yeah.
So they're like dark rim dice.
So they will get dark eye rim circles. Yeah, all of them do.
A chinchilla has always got like a white circle.
But it's not. It's more the colour of the skin, isn't it? That than an actual eye circle.
They do have, because you get very small hairs around the eye,
The small ones, yeah.
and they're all dark because it's the tips
Because
that.
it's the very short hair.
And with the ears, you get a mixture of. You can either get chocolate ears, or you can get tweeded ears.
Chocolate edge.
Well, you can see it's got that mismatching. So in the European standards, that's allowed. We're going for more chocolate solid. Yeah, but then because that one's quite mottled, that its coat's
It's
quite
heavier,
mottled.
yeah.
So it's a patchier pig with patchier skin. So what we're aiming for is more of a uniformed chocolatier. Yeah, they look nice. We What we struggle with these is consistency. And that's why the agouti ones kind of took over a little bit at one point, because when we were new to it and we were getting in, the agouti ones don't change. So if you get one as a baby, you can tell he's going to be showable. Most likely, it's going to be showable. I've been able to show generation after generation of the agouti ones, the chocolate ones. I didn't intend to, but I accidentally let all my chocolate ones go, because if you're going which is best,
Yeah, you've selected.
and what it was is unintentionally, and I now know more about the breed to be able to understand why, but because the Tweed gene only affects the chocolate, when you've got an agouti, you can have an overload of the Tweed gene and it doesn't affect the tip of the hair. So all of the hair can be tweeded without affecting it, so which always gives you a more even look to it. So
So
You got a friend, Jill.
these have come from South Chocolate.
yeah, they know they weren't born from self chocolate, but on a self chocolate. Do you know when they get grizzly? There are 20 different.
I don't know they've got grizzlies.
Yeah, so it's a common fault in chocolates is to get grizzling. Now there is 20 different grizzling genes. This is something I've learned since having the Tweeds. So not every grizzled chocolate is a Tweed.
Some of
But-
it grows out, doesn't it?
Yeah. Whereas this is just something that it is either one or two grizzling genes. It could be two, because we've got two different effects. And you can have ones without the other, can't you? So you could have one without the intermingling white hairs. You don't get it very often, or you could have one with the intermingling white hairs without the light undercolour. So bringing up, so with the agouti Tweed, when you lift this up,
What is it called? The agouti Tweed or the
Chocolate
golden
agouti.
no, so it's this would
agouti Tweed.
Yeah.
And it's only that colour.
so you could technically get cream agouti and chocolate agouti. You could get cinnamon, but you wouldn't see anything. So realistically, you can only really get a cream tip. You could get a buff tip, but we couldn't show it, or a gold tip.
And that's gold.
Yeah, so this is a chocolate agouti. Could it happen? So
That's a chocolate.
because currently you can't get a pink, well, you can't get a chocolate argente.
Yeah, you have beige. Any of the
Yeah,
beige.
so we don't know whether it goes over to beige yet.
No.
So
I just wondered if it.
we know it goes to blue. You can get blue Tweeds, but it's got to be a a chocolate based blue. So in Brazil,
The lavender.
it's still chocolate.
Yeah.
So it still looks blue.
Blue.
But basically, it's got to be a blue that's got chocolate in the background. Um, in Brazil, they've got blue Tweeds, and we are working on blue Tweeds, and we're working on black Tweeds. I do feel like we are getting some of the Tweed gene into the black. It is a very slow process. They've got them in cats, so you've got silvers in cats. So it was Jens that set me the challenge to create a black Tweed. So I do think that you've got to get it into black, you've got to have a real overload of that gene. Because we're getting blacks now that have got the silvered undercolour, haven't we?
Yeah.
And we've had some blacks with the grizzling. So it's a case of trying to get those together.
They've just got to be chocolate red and blacks.
Yeah.
That would be, yeah.
Yeah. So with the agouti ones, as you lift this up, you can see it's stripped all of the chocolate out.
Yeah.
So you've only got the Tweed colour. Now, this is what we need to find. The colour's the same on both. If you look at the lighter bits, the colour's the same on both because it's the chocolate that's stripped. So we can have a uniformed colour for both of these. It's just that we need a colour, but because it's not, the trouble lies, because it's an intermingle of hairs, it's not like a self colour where it's blanket. So that's where we need help finding that name, basically, so that you understand what the colour is, and when you're judging, you understand what the colour is, because silvered we've been told doesn't quite give it a colour.
And now that there's champagne, you can't use champagne. Which would
Well,
have
it's
been
not
a
champagne.
Pale, no, but it's a pale. Just thinking of a sort of what it would be in another animal. What that pale, very very pale chocolate based colour would be.
Yeah. So you can see. So,
Nice. Champagne.
I was thinking of the
That's very even, isn't
they're
it?
close
yeah.
to
So
the Argentine
Yes,
rabbits.
yes, they are. What colour do they use?
Would you call it ticking or ticking?
so the tweeding would give it the tweed gene would give a tipped effect. Now, if you look very closely on some
I'm just wondering when it gets to full standard, but would it go in the tipped section?
right, so you look very closely there, you can see the chocolate at the end of those tips. So it's tipped with gold and chocolate. So it's got a tip and a tick.
Right.
Right at the end, on the gold hairs, you can see a bit of chocolate right on the very tips of those. It's very slight, but it is there. Can you see here? There's bits of chocolate.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how agouti hair would go. If it was a chocolate agouti, you'd have chocolate, gold, chocolate. So what happens is the chocolate hair underneath the gold part is tweeded, and then you've got the gold bit, and then you have got the chocolate bit at the end. So it is.
So they will go in the tipped section with the Argentine and the agouti.
I honestly have no. That's not. But there's this one's an agouti tweed. It's basically having. So if you had if you had a belted that was agouti, it wouldn't go in the tipped, would it? It would go in marked. So because we are working.
Where are you going to put those then?
Yeah, you should think they were doing marks. Yeah, tipped. Tipped and tipped. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be that,
Those
like I
would
said,
go
ticked would have to
tipped,
change to
but what
ticked
about
and
the
tipped.
got marked tipped and tipped?
Yeah, I don't know.
I would assume that they'd go in with the tipped,
Yeah, yeah.
even.
I think logically,
It's like rolling, isn't it? 'Cause I mean, the rolls.
No,
No,
they'd have to go together. Um, you can see these are father and son, and evenness. They haven't been groomed, so he hasn't been groomed for a while, but he has. So you can see you have still got slight slight differences in there, but generally compared to
They're very
these,
young breed, aren't they?
yeah, generally they are a lot more even, and even going to.
It's lively, that one.
To groom the mask. Just grooming the mask.
It's lively.
Make the colour come through more.
I've never groomed the mask,
Right, okay.
so not some. So this is
What about grooming faces? You know what I mean?
this is one of Amy's, but even you see from a different stud, you can see the agouti ones have always been a lot more even. So that was kind of no, that's one of their downfalls. Is it's there because you can see it's all gold, but they're not. They don't stand out. Yeah.
If you didn't know it was supposed to be there, you wouldn't know.
You would know.
No.
Yeah.
And that's one of the downfalls. They're not as striking, but they are. Yes, a lot more even. But I did allow my stud to become just these, and I had to kind of. It's not now. That's mine, and I've got a sow that he's got pregnant now. So I have got chocolates in, and it is something I am going to work with them because I think it's because I've learnt about the breed and the fact that as much as these are even, it's the agouti part that's making them even. So the challenge is to get those even. And you've got some nice even ones.
Nice even ones. Yeah.
So it is doable. Lloyd Davis, he had a tweed boar, and he was showing it in pets, and I judged it as a pet. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, "You need to get this in new and emerging." I said it will give me a run for my money. It's that good.
I know, I just
And
quite a few times.
every show that pig went to, it won until it died. But
He's gutted about that.
It's hard to not laugh, isn't it, when you say it like that?
He's been and had a few like sows that have got Tweed in them to try and
try and reproduce. But he didn't breed that one, and it was kind of that one was one of Shireen's DJs that she let go. You can't keep all your balls, can you? And
she didn't think it was going to turn out as
no,
Okay, so that goes back to you say
then
they
they
changed
changed.
so much.
And that one, once it had got to the point, it stabilised, and it stabilised perfectly. I can't say that one ever faulted. So that one was a fantastic pig.
as you can tell, this one's never been out. This one's never been out.
But I feel like the chocolate ones, they're very much like chocolate Californias in a way. You've got to keep them for so long to find out what stabilises. Whereas these might not be stable, but they give the appearance of
And
being
are they
stable.
born like that?
They're born with, so the intermingling silvered hairs
Now
you
he's
don't
gonna
see at
wee.
all because they're too short. What you see is when they're born, pure, like it's like stark white undercolour and gold tips. They look completely gold, like no intermingling at all, with pure like silver undercolour. And then as they grow, that's when you start seeing the extra colour come through. It's all literally they come out that colour, and it's quite striking. Like
This is hair short.
yeah, it's really quite striking when they're born because the first one that was ever born, so I had one come out, and I looked at it and I went, if I'd have shown you that pig like that, you'd have said it was an Argente. You'd have said that it was lilac undercolour and gold tipping, but it got dark eyes, and I had two. So I what I thought was a boar and a sow. So I sold the boar, and then I'd got the sow, and I was going to put it in with a boar and a sow. Didn't get pregnant for absolutely ages, and then all of a sudden I saw it rumbling. It's like I picked it up. I couldn't find its willy at all. Couldn't find it, even when I picked it up. But it got a set of balls, and it still looked like a sow. But it did father all of the. It was the because I even put it in sale pen, and I showed it to David Alton, and I said to him, I said, "What's that?" And he said, "It's an Argente." I said, "Look again. What is it?" He went, "Well, it should be an Argente, but it's definitely not." And he just said to me, "That is really interesting. Don't sell it." So I didn't. So I then put it to I'd got a Dutch marked Tweed, chocolate Tweed. So I just put it to that one. And yeah, it was just a pet one. I, I wasn't serious about actually keeping it. I was calling it a Tweedle because I didn't know what it was. And then from that, because I put it back to a Tweed, the first agouti Tweed came out, and like I've got pictures of it. I'm happy to send any of you the pictures. And like this gold self came out with white undercolour, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Like because it didn't look like a Tweed does when it's born. It had come from this dark-eyed Argente that I'd had, that was like a hermaphrodite of some kind, and when the baby came out, it baffled me. And then the baby grew into, and I showed the baby. The baby was absolutely fantastic. So it was the granddad or the great granddad to these two. Because as you went down the generations, the agouti ones they're born even, they stayed even. You showed them, so you end up keeping those ones. So that was why the whole of my stud ended up in that way.
So, can you take us through belly, chest, and face, please?
Yeah. So the belly's different on both. So on a Tweed, chocolate Tweed. Come on, let me look. Right, let's try on you. So on a chocolate Tweed, you'll get Tweed on its belly. So it's solid, but it's a self in essence. So a self should have the same colour belly going round.
We'll have exactly the same belly as.
Yeah. So when you then go to an agouti has an agouti belly. So you've got to, in this essence, with that, it's an agouti with the Tweed gene, so you will get a belly. And that was one of the things in the assessment class, because we were calling this a gold Tweed. And Don actually said, well, you can't have two different colours with two different characteristics. And it wasn't until I had a really bad one born that had got chocolate undercolour, and I was like, oh, they're a really shit chocolate agouti. Like that's, and I brought it to Don. I said, I figured out what it is. So then the belly, you explain with the feet. So you expect the tweeding to go down to the feet. You haven't got much on the back of those.
You don't want selfie.
So you've got tweeding on going right down to the feet. So now you wouldn't have solid feet. You would expect there to be. They are darker because the hair's shorter. So yeah. So as the nose, but you can still see tiny bits of tweeding on their feet. But anywhere that the hair is shorter, you would expect to get darker. But they haven't got.
So with the chests, would the agouti ones have the agouti chest?
Agouti chest in.
And it comes up like that, and then the rest of it.
Yeah, chocolate
Yeah.
Tweed agouti.
Oh, hello, you.
Yes.
Yeah. So all the
So it
characteristics.
needs to be tipped under like an agouti.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what about these?
So there would be like a self.
Because that's more like a chinchilla chest, isn't it?
So they are the opposite to a chinchilla. So
Should that not all be tipped under there?
oh, sorry, you're not liking. You let me.
Because that's more like an agouti chest.
Yeah, like. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, quite good.
More than one way to do that.
Do you wanna?
Not having it, are you? No. That one is there we go. Yeah, so it still is sort of like a light.
Yeah. So would that be a fault then, because it's not even under?
So
I know you need to concentrate on the top first before you concentrate on the chest, but ultimately.
so because these have the same patterns as a chinchilla, it would make sense for if underneath is the same. Because if you look at chinchilla, where these have got the chocolate mask, a chinchilla has a white one or a lighter one. Around the eyes on a chinchilla is lighter, where we've got darker here. So when you look at a chinchilla and a tweed next to each other, they're opposite completely.
So
So
where does that break the chest then on these?
so the throat part here.
Because the chinchilla has a definite white belly,
Yeah.
and then it comes up and round there, doesn't it?
Well, this doesn't have the
And
belly.
then it's tipped across there, but that doesn't have the belly, so it
So
doesn't
there's-
have the white chest either.
So I think that's just lighter. See, that one is tweeded all the way around.
Yeah, that's what it should be
Yeah,
like then.
so
If
yeah.
it's opposite than the chinchilla. It should
So
be-
it hasn't got a chest. It hasn't got a chest colour.
Yeah.
So
So it's a solid pig all the way around.
Yeah.
Chest, belly, all the way around.
Yeah.
Feet, everything.
yeah, on these
Really, they're very different, aren't they?
they are. Yes.
Amazingly different to say the same breed.
Yeah, but it's like working on. Okay, so with the belted, if
Really got to think about it.
if you've got a belted agouti and a belted self, the belted agouti will still have the agouti belly.
Yeah.
We've got an agouti
Same with
belted.
the Dutch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you go with the Dutch. You've still got to have the characteristics of the agouti on there.
Tried them in solid agouti.
to see if that loses the belly.
So you would lose the belly if you
Yeah.
went on to solid
I
agouti.
was thinking because obviously that's where they came from. So people using them for dowels and roans.
Yeah, so you would, because I've had solid agouti tricolour.
Variations here, it's confusing.
See, then
Yeah.
I feel like I wouldn't start that now
No.
because
I'm just more interested in the effect of that gene on the different varieties of the chocolate and the chocolate agouti, and how it would affect it.
I don't know, I haven't put one
I didn't
in.
know whether anyone in Europe had done it.
So there's not actually many people in Europe that are breeding them now. So I imported these out from Denmark in 2015, and even going to TL, hardly anyone's breeding dapples, as they call them. I think, yeah, so in Europe they're called dapples. In New Zealand they're called tweeds. And we wanted to go for the New Zealand way because English speaking country.
Also, dapple has connotations of dull, doesn't it?
Yeah, so we can't use dapple because the Dalmatian came in as a dapple at one point. So the word has already been used in English, like KV
So where did
history.
the tweed come from? Why tweed?
I suppose it's a bit like the fabric.
Alright, okay.
So the difference with I've spoke to the lady in New Zealand that got them. Now to start with, the message I got was like, you can't have tweeds that are exclusive to New Zealand, and I was like, I do have them. Like they've popped up in Europe. We've had them over. We get on quite well now, and we message each other if I've created something. Like I sent to the agouti, they haven't got the agouti tweeds, so we
They've just got the chocolate one.
yeah, and but she doesn't like how like as I've got they're nice like the head and the eyes and the ears, like because English pigs have got glamour. We're always after that glamour, aren't we? Whereas one of the characteristics in New Zealand is they want really typey, like squashed faces, quite big eyes, and sticking up ears like that. They want mice ears so that they look like wombats. That's in their standard that they want the ears are right up like that. Now, but
He
with
just
ours,
goes against everything we know. Do you know what I mean? We want them pretty ears, not
Yeah.
ears.
Oh, they love the Dumbo ones, haven't they?
so see, we don't go for different characteristics in size and shape, really, do we? I know certain pigs have different size and shape. So your teddies tend to be more pear-shaped, whereas your Rexes have got more size. Your Goldens are huge.
You've got some that will never get a short face.
Yeah, your Himmies have got a longer face. So yes, we have characteristics, but in our standard, we're all aiming toward the same thing. We haven't got it in the standard for the Himmy that they should have a longer face. We haven't, have we? No.
I'm working on it.
But
But
we
the long
don't.
face is there because of
The breed.
if you take it out,
Then you don't get the smuts.
Yeah.
Actually, in the rabbit, it calls for a long snipey shape.
Yeah,
Snaky.
snaky.
But
But
yes, I want that in the baby stand.
but it makes sense because it makes your breed better to have that.
You don't want them big and fat because you're warming the body up. And then
But then that would be the only breed in the whole of the KV fancy that has anything about different to the shape of the face and body. But we know that different breeds have different shapes. Like the solid agoutis, they looked completely different. In like when they were really popular, I would have loved to have seen the skull of one of those because the difference in the shape was massive. They hadn't quite got the glamour, but they were quite solid pigs, weren't they?
yeah, some nice tidy ones.
But the shape of the head was different.
Yeah, you could tell. You could tell
By looking at
from a
it,
distance.
which was a
shape.
solid agouti and an agouti, you could tell from over here which one was which without looking at the belly.
Generally, you would tell from the shade of them anyway.
Yeah,
But yeah, shape-wise, they would be different.
but no, like she thinks that we've had discussions about it and we agree to disagree.
I guess it's just we are, like you said, we are.
We
Both kinds, aren't they?
we standardise the shape and the body. Really, it's the
The shape of babies.
They're lovely, aren't they? They've
So
got
we don't live in New
lovely.
Zealand.
I don't think
We can fly over it.
I
So,
keep
yeah.
having someone in Germany that wants tweeds.
well,
He does.
it would be nice to get them back out into Europe. See, I like Amy's. You can see I quite like the lightness of Amy's. You can see how crisp that is.
Show babies in
He's got a nice short coat. He's calmed down now.
He has calmed a little bit now.
But no, these are getting old now. Like I've shown these for years. Like these went through the assessment class. These two did. So it kind of shows how long they've been out. And actually, I've still entered him into Southwest. So I quite like the fact that it is a breed that you can show for quite a while as well.
Well, is it his brother originally where the line for this one, really, isn't it?
Yeah, so my agoutis came into yours, didn't they?
Yeah.
We did get a lot of satins out at one point.
I'm still getting satins.
Oh, I see. You had all my satins off me though, didn't you?
Yeah.
Every time I had a satin, like DJ and you were fighting over them.
Yeah.
Why are the satins coming out?
Put in somewhere.
They were in at some point. I've wheedled them out of my line.
Like abroad or something.
Because if they
Yeah.
come from chocolate,
How many people have chocolate satins?
satins, yeah.
But then,
I guess the agouti, maybe the agouti. I know Denmark, there were quite a lot of chocolate agouti satins, and they were went over here.
well, this is where they came from. They came from Denmark. So even if they've only started off with a satin somewhere, it's come down.
Takes one.
Yeah. Whereas I hardly ever get any out now. Whereas at one point I was always getting them out, wasn't I?
Yeah.
So it's something you wheedle it out.
Any
of you.
boars, just go. Satin now.
I
I do have a few sows.
So I don't keep anything with
As long
satin.
as you record
Yes,
what's
yeah.
got satin in, then
It's
at least
more
you know.
at one point